November 1896, a time of expanding knowledge and technical innovation. Recorded by Edison's band and played back on Edison's invention, this was popular music back then. Popular opinion was sharply divided in that presidential election year. New and unfamiliar patterns of global finance had triggered a panic that forced monetary policy to the center of the debate. A slim majority chose William McKinley and the gold standard over William Jennings Bryan, who called for unlimited minting of silver coins. That was the big news that November. The Chenango Semi-Weekly Telegraph called McKinley's win a magnificent victory. 2 weeks later, the paper's tone was just as enthusiastic. In this article of more immediate interest to most Norwich families, it answered the question, when will the last of the 3 new ward schools finally open? Our issue of Wednesday last told of the opening of the new ward school at the corner of Cortlandt and Miller Streets. The school at the corner of Birdsall and Front Streets has been open for some weeks, and it is expected that the third of the new schoolhouses, that located at the corner of Rexford and Silver Streets, will be opened in a couple of weeks. The article described the schools as beautiful specimens of architecture, calling education the most important issue confronting local officials. These neighborhood schools, and 2 others built later, served hundreds of children for some 60 years before they too were outgrown and replaced. The Cortlandt Street School was torn down. The South Broad Street School is now vacant. The Birdsall Street School is a dance studio. The East Main School became an apartment building, while the Rexford Street School has housed the Chenango County Historical Society since 1962.
This year is the quadricentennial of Ward School number 2, and this was the building opened on November 21st, partway through the school year, obviously, and students were welcomed here almost 125 years ago now. And since Ward School number 2 has served as the home of this function for the last 5 or so decades, we wanted to move forward with this documentary and really celebrate all that this building means to our communities.
Jessica recruited some of the former students to share their memories of school days long gone by. It turns out that what they remember most is what they did and who they met.
I was familiar with this school ever since I was 3 years old. My father was a coal dealer, and he used to deliver coal here.
After Bob Kirkby turned 5, Ward School number 2 became his daily destination. That was in 1935.
This is going to sound strange, but the most memorable thing was I met a fellow who started the week about 2 weeks later because they moved from Sydney. His name was Bob Gray, and we became fast friends and still are. He's 92 and I'm 91. We got a pilot's license together. We're the youngest ones in the state. We got our pilot's license, and when we were 14, we could fly a plane, we couldn't drive a car yet.
Gordon Stevens came along 5 years later.
Seems to me the heart of that school was the library on the 2nd floor. All kinds of things happened. I remember one time we were taken in there, a whole group of us, made to take off our shoes and socks and have our insteps measured to see if we had flat feet.
We all came through the front door together in the morning, and the American flag was there, and in each of our classrooms was a picture of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and we just, we went right to our classrooms. There was no, loitering or anything, right into your classroom. But Mrs. Bennington, who was my first grade teacher, she would stand right inside the door, and on Mondays quite often, we would have to stop and show our hands. And she checked our fingernails, because otherwise you had to go to the sink, or sometimes you would get your nails clipped.
While there was a library, there was no gym and not much of a playground. But the old Borden Avenue Park was nearby.
They had some kind of neat equipment up there, and it was not that bad a walk, up the street and around the corner. And they had something called a merry-go-round, which is a round wooden platform spins, had like rails like this that the kids could grab on. And you grabbed one and you ran and then you hopped on. I'm a couch potato bookworm. I wasn't athletic and I missed and landed on my knee. And along came Miss Mason with this jar of red stuff, which I thought was mercurochrome, which we used at home, no prob. And she slapped it right on and it was iodine, and I about went through the moon. My introduction to iodine and my memory of Miss Mason, very vivid.
And the most memorable thing I have involved our class in the spring being up to Cortlandt Street School, and it turned out on this spring day to be very, very warm, uncomfortably warm. We boys were saying, could we take our t-shirts off? We are hot. And so Mrs. Mason said, go ahead, take them off, be comfortable. Well, there was this one girl who whipped her t-shirt off, and Mrs. Mason went about through the roof and said, you put that shirt back on. And the rest of us were laughing like crazy.
We had a troublemaker. I'm not going to mention his name because he may still be alive. In fact, I think he probably is. So she sat him right dead in front of her desk. Well, what do teachers have on their desk but a clipboard? He managed to stick his finger through the hole in the spring-loaded end of the clipboard and couldn't get it out. So she had to take it across the street, diagonally across the street over to the Exxon filling station over there. I think it was Mr. Adams ran it at the time, and get him to cut the thing off his finger.
For me, it was helping the dentist or whatever he was when they started fluoride treatments. And I went in with Roberta Land. She was in our class too.
Yeah.
And we had to soak our hands in very hot water to make sure they were sterile. And then we cut little bits of cotton rolls, and they used them in the clamps in the mouth.
I don't remember.
And so we used to do that.
The teachers taught and we listened.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
in order to pass, you
yeah.
kind of had to do it.
Yeah, they didn't
well.
they just didn't put you through because
Yeah.
you were a friend of their child's or they knew that your parents. That didn't happen.
We did a play, I remember, in fourth grade where I think Abraham Lincoln to get his beard with the girl. I don't know if you know that play, whatever it was, but I was Abraham Lincoln, I remember. And I forget who the girl was, but she was about 2 feet taller than I was. So, but it was fun and kind of enjoyed it.
And I just couldn't wait to get here because I could be in the big school. And then it made me feel like I was going to be more of a grown-up. I think that's my mindset. But this place has always had memories for me. And so when I got to work here at the museum, it's just a labor of love for me. And I'm sure that here they're tired of hearing my stories. But this just is like, it's like coming home.
I think it's just really exciting to be able to honor what the former students' experience was here in this facility and this space, and to be able to extend the life of this historic structure and allow it to have a whole new purpose, and hopefully to generate additional enthusiasm and interest for pride of place in Chenango County. Be able